You are here to explain yourself.
Correct.
And you even promised the people that you will be here to explain yourself.
Correct.
Very good. This is about conflict of interest. And as we begin this meeting,
Absolutely.
Is there anybody who has a
You must
conflict to declare?
Yes.
You do? Yeah?
Yes.
City?
I'm a resident of Nairobi.
All right.
And he's my senator. So that's a conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest right
Yes.
there.
You're
You,
also a
Senator?
resident.
I am a resident of Nairobi.
Yeah.
I'm not a voter
So
in Nairobi.
all of you here
Have conflict.
Yes,
Yeah.
conflicted.
Yeah.
I am happy you start with that. First, let me correct what he has said there. He's confusing me with somebody else by calling me a frequent flyer. That's not me. There's been a lot of fake news and everybody trying to tell
There
what
are
should
many frequent flyers.
Yeah.
One
So,
of them
City,
is Edwin Sifuna.
it's good that you have confirmed that you are a voter in Nairobi, because I remember when this entire conversation began and they said, okay, you are actually the first person to call me on Sunday, and Sunday of last week, and he told me he needs to have a conversation with me. And I said, I'll come. And people on Twitter are asking me, why are you going to spice? We said space, not spice. And somebody told me, even during the election, go there for them to vote for you. Now that he has confirmed that he is a voter in Nairobi,
I am.
and I have a responsibility to all the voters in Nairobi and residents of Nairobi to explain myself, City. I think that, form is not as important as the substance of a discussion. And all these platforms that are available for us should be available for us to be able to explain some of these things. So what I'm going to try to do this morning, I'm going to go full Ednah on you people. I have brought files and all the documents, just like Kanze did, so that we don't have any misunderstanding. I am going to try and explain the thinking that went into the decision by the Senate to make certain amendments.
Before that?
Yes.
The proverb.
Yes. Oh, I thought the proverb went with the CS.
Kila mtu akona
Kila mtu ana proverb
This
yake.
proverb is huge. It's the same proverb
for everybody.
It's huge, but everybody has their piece. Now it's your turn.
I must get my piece.
Yes, exactly.
Sawa.
Misfortune comes on horseback, but departs on foot.
Misfortune comes on horseback, but departs on foot.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very true. It's very true. Shida inakupatanga haraka sana, but kutoka inatoka pole pole, which is part of the experience that I've had this entire week. Because City, I also acknowledge I know who I am, and it is fashionable now for people to come and come after me, because they think that I have really been hard on them when they have been offside, and they have concocted this story that somehow Sifuna is one of those people who would support a bill that would allow us. In fact, the story out there is that the Senate passed a bill to allow ourselves to do business with government, and nothing could be further from the truth. What I'm here to do this morning is to try and explain the reasoning that went into some of the proposals that were made by the Senate on this particular bill, and to also just clarify that in fact this bill is still in the custody of Parliament. The legislative process has not been completed, and that we are willing actually, because the Senate will not give you the attitude we saw of wapende wasipende in the National Assembly, so that we are willing to be persuaded that we missed something in this conversation, so that we can all be on the same page. If you allow me,
the bill in question is the conflict of interest bill.
Correct.
And I'd like us to start from the very top.
Yes.
What is the conflict of interest bill?
Fantastic. So allow me to start by saying this entire discussion about the conflict of interest stems from our own constitution, chapter 6, on the conduct of public officials and state officials and how we should conduct ourselves. Now, the thinking behind this bill, for me, was a consolidation of all the pieces of legislation that lie across various pieces of law into one bill, so that we can have one document that deals with conflict of interest, because it's not as if this matter has not been legislated before, and I will demonstrate to you here that in fact there are clauses all across in the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. You will find reference to conflict of interest. In the Public Officer Ethics Act, you will find references to conflict of interest. In the Leadership and Integrity Act, you will find references to conflict of interest. In fact, my position, City, is that we don't have a shortage of law regulate conflict of interest. And this is a position that is shared by many people. But I want, if you allow me, to start with the people who began all this furor.
Yeah.
And what I believe is a misstatement of what happened in the Senate is a letter from the Ethics and Corruption Commission. You have seen this document posted on their website. And there is an allegation here that has brought all this furor. They said in, I think, the second last paragraph there, is that the most tragic change by Senate is a proposal to delete the offense of conflict of interest from the existing law, hence allowing state officials and their family members to directly trade with the public institutions they serve. This is where all this noise is coming from. Now, is it true? I want to tell you here that what the EACC is saying is manifestly false. And to demonstrate this, I have brought the actual act. And I want to read to you the act itself as was passed by the Senate, so that you see, yes, the bill itself. The bill itself as was passed by the Senate, because it originated from the National Assembly, and then we made some proposals on changes. Now, if the EACC is saying that we have deleted all references to conflict of interest, and the bill is here before us, I want to show you, this is part 3 of the bill. It says there at the top what city. What does it say?
Conflict of interest.
Exactly. So they are saying we deleted all these clauses, and I want to read them. We did not delete these clauses. They are in the bill. A public officer is in conflict of interest if the public officer exercises an official power, duty or function to further his or her private interest or the private interest of another person. It is there. Number 2, fails to declare and register a private interest that is in conflict with the public interest. Section 9. A public officer shall take reasonable steps to avoid any real, apparent, or potential conflict of interest in connection with the official duties of a public officer. And B, disclose details of a private interest of the public officer that affects the official duties of the public officer. Section 10 of the bill. A public officer shall not make a decision or participate in making a decision relating to the exercise of an official power or the performance of a duty or function if the public officer knows that in the making of the decision, the officer would be in conflict of interest.
If they know.
Yes. Subsection 2, a person who contravenes subsection 1 commits an offense. Now, what is the punishment for that offense? If, for instance, I were to engage in this conflict of interest, it is a jail term of 10 years. The Senate did not, and I have brought to you both the bill as was passed, and then there is a schedule of amendments. The schedule of amendments by the Senate is here. If you look at this document, City, you will not see any place where the Senate has proposed to delete subsection 8, 9, and 10. So when the EACC puts out such a sensationalized statement claiming that the most tragic change is that the Senate has proposed to delete the offense of conflict of interest, they are lying.
In other laws.
They are lying. No. So let's go. Let's go to the other laws. Now, one of the things that I started by telling you is this. You want clarity in the law. You want clarity in the law because if a judge is sitting somewhere and there is a provision on conflict of interest, that provision must be clear so that there doesn't exist any other provision in any other law that would bring confusion. And I want to demonstrate this to you because I've printed out for you the various laws that speak about the same thing. And then to explain to you the reason why the Senate deleted the other clauses in the other bills to retain these ones that I've read for you because you want clarity and you want to remove ambiguity.
Okay.
Let me give you a clear example. I'll start with the Economic Crimes Act.
Okay.
There is Section 42.
Yep.
Are you with me? Section 42
of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act.
Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act is titled, again, Conflicts of Interest.
Okay.
It is here. You know? So if you look at the schedule of amendments from the Senate, you will see a clause saying, delete Section 42 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. Why are we doing that? Because there is already now provision within the bill that we are dealing with on the question of conflict of interest. I will give you another example. You go to...
What does Section 42 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act?
I will read it. It is here.
Have
conflicts of
you
interest.
copied what is in that law that was passed by Parliament into this
No,
law?
I will read it so that you understand why there's no need to copy it.
Okay.
You are dealing with a concept of conflict of interest, right? It is not that you have to copy word for word what it says, because if I read to you this and then you juxtapose with what I have read to you in the conflict of interest bill, you can then have a conversation with me on whether which of those two provisions of law is actually stronger or more captures the spirit and letter of chapter 6 of the Constitution. So this is what it says.
Yep.
If an agent, it is talking about an agent.
Yep.
If an agent has a direct or indirect private interest in a decision that his principal is to make, the agent is guilty of an offense. You understand?
Translate
This is talking
that from
about
legalese.
Yes, it is talking about a relationship of principal and agent. The bill that we have provided for is applicable to all instances where, as a person, as an individual in a position to influence anything, you are being told you cannot do that. It is criminal. So the provision that I have read to you under the current bill is actually wider in application than this one that is limited to the relationship between an agent and a principal. It's a legal company.
Who's an agent and a principal?
I don't know which the
Give
best
an example.
I don't know which the best example is.
A public officer and a public entity.
No.
And a business.
In fact, the relationship of an agent and a principal is a private relationship.
Yeah, that's
it's not a public relationship.
I want to understand in the context of fighting conflict of interest in the public sector by public officers.
Correct.
How would you put in?
That's why I'm saying
who's the principal and who's
that's
the
why
agent?
I'm saying that's why the Senate proposed to delete this.
Why?
Because it has no relationship with the public sector challenges that we are facing. Because if you look at, and I wanted you to compare the language in the bill that we passed and this language. This language is very narrow. It specifies a relationship of agent and principal. This one starts by saying a public officer is in conflict of interest. This section 42 of the current Economic Crimes Act has no reference to public officer.
Let's go other parts of
Mnanielewa?
section
So
42.
hii tumesema, for instance, delete 42 of this. And the reason why we are doing that is because it has been provided for here, right?
Okay.
Now, there is
Was that the only aspect of section 42?
No, it's an example. Yes. The entirety of the law is here.
So section 42 was only what you've read?
Correct.
No.
I can read it all.
Please.
Latiff, I have built my career on integrity. I will not come here and lie. And this is the reason I printed this law, and this law is accessible to you on your very fabulous computers there. If you go to kenyalaw.org, so that you don't, if you don't believe my document, you can check on yours.
Read section
So
42.
let me read all of it. If an agent has a direct or indirect private interest in a decision that his principal is to make, the agent is guilty of an offense if the agent knows or has reason to believe that the principal is unaware of the interest and the agent fails to disclose the interest, and the agent votes or participates in the proceedings of his principal in relation to the decision. Number 2, a private body may authorize its agent to vote or participate in proceedings of a private body, and the voting or participation of an agent so authorized is not a contravention of subsection 1. 3, an agent of a public body who knowingly acquires or holds directly or indirectly a private interest in any contract, agreement, or investment emanating from or connected with the public body is guilty of an offense. Subsection 3 does not apply with respect to an employment contract of the agent or related or similar contract or agreement, or to any prescribed contract, agreement, or investments. That is the entirety of section 42, which we propose to delete.
Okay.
Now, this same act, Economic Crimes Act, if you go to section 46, which the Senate did not touch, abuse of office. A person who uses his office to improperly confer a benefit on himself or anyone else is guilty of an offense. The Senate did not touch this. So that is one law. Number 2, I want to show you, there is another law called the Public Officer Ethics Act, which deals exactly with this question of ethics in public office and conflict of interest. These laws, let me refer you to section 11, for instance. No improper enrichment. A public officer shall not use his office to improperly enrich himself or others. Do you see the similarity in language between section 11 of this act and section 46 of the Anti-Corruption and Crimes Act? So if a judge, you see the Ethics and Corruption Commission has been charged with enforcing these laws.
Yes.
And you have two sets of laws. The language is different. You are creating ambiguity. Yeah. That is why when you come up with a law specifically to deal with conflict of interest, you will see references to deletion of clauses in other laws.
Okay, Senator.
Or amendment of clauses.
Correct.
Okay, so essentially what we're saying here is that what was removed had already shown somewhere else, and there was no need for repetition.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. And you see, what we are protesting is the claim by EACC that we have removed clauses referring or dealing with the question of conflict of interest. Yet I have demonstrated to you these clauses are in the Act. Let's go to the leadership.
I want to spend a bit of time there.
Yes.
Right? Because from what I hear you, the reading of the ASECA, the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and the proposals in the bill, there's a section 46 that is specific to public officer. And 42 is talking about agents.
Correct.
In private and public. Right?
Yes.
In my reading of this, it sounds like what ASECA is doing is also saying that a private entity dealing in a conflict with the public is also liable. And probably this is what the EACC has previously used.
What we are trying
Let me finish, then you can explain. When we see, for example, the Director of Public Prosecutions taking people to court on matters of corruption, whether they are private entities that dealt with the public office, or whether it's a public officer who is then accused of abusing office, then that is contained in the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act.
Yes.
Right? Where you're saying you, as an entity, acting directly or with an agency, because of the corruption that has been found to have been committed, you're also liable.
Yes.
And you're taken to court.
Yeah.
If you delete that, does that not affect that provision?
No, it doesn't, because the economic crime does not go away when you have removed this description of the agency relationship is a whole legal concept that I don't know if I have time to explain this thing. But the truth of the matter is the conflict we are dealing with and the discussion in the public space is not about private entities. If you I'll give you an example. If as a private entity, for instance, you engage in bid rigging, yeah, you are placing a bid for a public tender and you engage in bid rigging or collusion or the economics and anti-corruption laws already have criminal sanction for that conduct. So if you are dealing with conflict of interest, the conflict of interest that we are dealing with here is in the public space. And City, I want us to have...
Eric.
Yeah, sorry. I want us to have a conversation about what the EACC is telling the public. Because the EACC claims that because of these amendments in the Senate, the war on corruption is lost. I want us to be very honest with each other, City. We have all these laws in place right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are people in power doing business with government?
Yes, they are.
Are they doing business with government?
Yes.
How? How are they able to do business with government? How many people have you had convicted because the law exists? I can show you all these laws here. They are here. Section 20, this is the Leadership and Integrity Act. Which other example can I give you?
So you're saying we don't even need this bill?
We actually do not.
Even the bill that you're dealing with?
We actually do not, because the problem in Kenya is not the absence of laws. And I want to read to you one statement from the Public Service Commission, because when this bill came for public participation, all these stakeholders actually came and gave views to the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the public, of the Senate. I want to read you the last statement from, this is the submission, a memorandum of the Public Service Commission on the Conflict of Interest Bill 2023 to the Senate Standing Committee on Legal Affairs and Human Rights. There's a paragraph there that says conclusion. The Commission reiterates, as it did before the National Assembly, that it is more practical to amend the existing legislation and address any identified gaps as opposed to enacting a new law which merely replicates what already exists. And this has also been our position. The truth is, even with the existing laws, what the EACC should be telling us is we need to tighten here or tighten there so that we are able to better implement some of these things. That's what I'm saying. this is what we are trying to do.
That's not what you
This
did.
is what we're trying to do.
What you've gone ahead
if we have
actually,
just a minute,
by the number
Eric,
of amendments that you've made,
yes,
you have written the law.
This is what we need to understand.
If you are buying the idea of we do not need a new law,
just a minute.
Why amend that law? Why pass the bill in the first place?
That's what we are saying. If you just listen to what the PSC is telling the Senate,
yes,
that we should avoid replicating what already exists. So if you see the memorandum of amendments, I wish really Eric, you would listen to what I'm telling you. When you see all these deletions of other places, of laws in other places, or deletion of clauses in the act itself, I'll give you the best example on this question of wealth declaration. There is another claim by EACC that we have now said we will no longer be declaring our wealth. You know, it is a false claim. It is demonstrably false. So in the bill itself, there is a section that was proposed to deal with declaration of wealth. So that is from clauses 31, 31A, 31B of the bill. Now, this is the bill. Again, where is the bill?
It's under there.
Yes, this is the bill. So if you see the clauses that we deleted, this is starting from clause 30, is on compliance measures. This is the reporting, the declaration of assets and liabilities for all public officers. And I want to take you to the Public Officer Ethics Act. It has a more elaborate procedure of declaration of wealth by all of us, including the forms to be used. So for us, we are saying, why are you duplicating? And in fact, you're bringing in inferior provisions to already existing laws. So why don't we retain the existing laws? That is all we are doing, my brother Eric. So I want to be very categorical here that it is okay to have a discourse, but we must be factual with the discourse that we are engaging in. For you to go and sensationalize things, because some of us, our history is known. My legislative history is known. Every single time I have stood up to do what is right. Latiff, you know that as SG of ODM, I am very, very familiar with the position of the coalition and my party on some of these things. It was a stated position of the Azimio coalition during the campaigns. It is in our manifesto that, in fact, if we were to form government, none of us, no public officer would do business with government. So there is no way Sifuna, as SG of ODM, would go and do that. So what we have done as Senate, we have invited the EACC. We are going to invite them at the end of the motion that is before the Senate now discussing the question of the state of the nation, to come and have a conversation with us if in fact we can be persuaded that there is need for all of these laws to exist, all these duplicitous laws to exist, then we will be convinced or persuaded.
Eric, are we going to a break?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 27 minutes to 10.
You are tired of all these clauses?
Yeah?
No,
I am not.
Not yet.
We have just started. It's 27 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Senator Edwin Sifuna, Senator for Nairobi City County, and this is in response to even the public outcry and the outcry from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission on how the Senate went ahead and processed the, what's it called, that bill?
Conflict of interest.
That one. The Conflict of Interest Bill. Several amendments made in the National Assembly. It was taken to the Senate. The Senate made several other amendments, and there's been outcry on the amendments specifically that have come out of the Senate. Discussing that. And our guest is Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna on the issue of the Conflict of Interest Bill and how the Senate then treated this bill and dealt with the bill. I was asking you the question as we were going to the break.
Yeah.
You had explained it a bit. Please just expound on it. What is the effect of amending clauses of other laws that have been in existence?
Yeah.
For example, there's a clause on the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. There's another clause on the Public Officer Ethics Act, and you've deleted those at the same time. Were they in conflict? Okay, right now, are they in conflict because this is still a bill, not a law?
Yeah, so what you are trying to do is to amalgamate the law on a single issue. If you have 3 separate laws that all make reference to conflict of interest, you want to bring them under one law. It's a cleanup of the legislative process, you know. So if the Leadership and Integrity Act has a section, I'll give you an example of misuse of official information. This is something that is under the Leadership and Integrity Act. It is also in this bill. Yeah. Section 13, a public officer shall not directly or indirectly use or allow any person under the officer's authority to use any information that is obtained in the course of performing official duties and is not available to the public to improperly further or seek to further the interest of the officer or the interest of another person. A person who commits who contravenes subsection 1 commits an offense liable to 10 years in jail. So if
so this
I don't know how I can explain it.
This is contained in a law.
Yes.
That was passed by Parliament.
Correct.
Parliament is processing another
law. Yes.
So would Parliament then not just say we have picked this part of that law, brought it into this law, and now we say delete? It's contained
this is
here.
the point.
Because the issue that I'm seeing here, Senator, is that Parliament comes up with new language to use in this law and says delete that other law that we had put in place with different language.
Yes.
Are you saying that language was wrong?
No, it's not about the language being
Why
wrong.
would you not just take that?
The best example is if you look at the Leadership and Integrity Act, it talks about the entire conduct of a public officer, right?
Yes.
The entire conduct. But then the EACC in its wisdom says we want to narrow down to have specific legislation for one particular conduct, which they're saying is a key cog in the fight against corruption. They say it is what? Conflict of interest.
Yes.
So what do? If we were to do what you are saying, it would mean that I cut section 42 of the anti-corruption and economics, right? Paste it there. Then I cut another section from the leadership and integrity, which talks about, and paste it there.
Yes.
Then you cut another section from the Public Officer Ethics Act and paste it there.
Yes.
Talking about the same thing.
Yes.
That is not how you legislate.
Why?
Because you will have three. Can you imagine how that bill would look like? Can you imagine if you are reading section 42 from the act I've read you and the other one, and they are now part of the same law? What you need to do is to come up with a clause that captures the spirit of the intent of the law. And then that will be able to cover all the scenarios that are anticipated in those three.
The fear, even in the reaction and response from the public, and even from what we saw in the statement by the EACC, is that the language used in part here, and another part there, another part there, and then removing those other provisions of the law, this language then weakens the effect of it.
So I have read to you the language. I have read to you the language in subsection 8, 9, 10. I have read to you subsection 12 on preferential treatment, misuse of official information, section 14 on undue influence, because you see, for me, I have said here, I am willing to be persuaded. We have presented to you the thinking that went into some of these proposals and amendments. The bill making process is not complete. We would be more than happy, and this is why we are inviting EACC to come and have this conversation with us, that you are saying if the language that has been used has watered down the effect of the bill, we can have that conversation. But to go and lie to the public that we have actually deleted references to public conflict of interest in a manner that now allows Sifuna to do business with Parliament or with government is very wrong. That is why we are saying. And by the way,
let me give you an example.
Let me just finish that point.
The new law
by giving you something in the Leadership and Integrity. No, it's actually the Public Officer Ethics Act, something that actually binds the EACC themselves.
Yep.
It's about telling the truth. You cannot be the police of people who are misbehaving, and you yourself you misbehave. The law is that this is section 19. Section 19 of the Public Officer Ethics Act, misleading the public. That's the crime. A public officer shall not knowingly give false or misleading information to members of the public or to any other public officer. So the EACC themselves are in contravention of the law by giving misleading information to the public.
Maybe they don't know. They're not doing
How do you not know? How do you not know? The EACC exists solely for this.
If they don't know, then to what end do you think? Why do you think then that this statement was issued?
That is a very good question. You see, we are in a very interesting time. And we have seen a few things that are being sensationalized to feed the public anger. Yesterday, we woke up and somebody had posted a video of, I think it was Jeremiah Kioni, claiming that there is a proposal in the elections amendment laws to have vehicles as polling stations. And I know for a fact, I have the bill before the Senate in front of me. I look at that section and there's no reference to vehicles as polling centers. But it is something that is riling up the public. The other day, the newspapers, actually there was news media, woke up and said, MPs want to add themselves salaries. Latiff, we have to have honest conversations in this country. No member of parliament has the right to determine their own salaries. The Gazette notice that people were talking about and was sensationalized by media was from September of 2013. By the time we were going to the election, by the way, there was a Gazette notice showing how much each member of parliament was going to earn. The September 2013, which was 2023 one, was a schedule of salary increases of 14,000 shillings. But the perception, the way the news is presented, is that Sifuna has sat somewhere and decided he's going to add himself 14,000 Kenya shillings. There is, I don't know what is going on, but people need to feed the anger of the public. And this anger is being directed at all of us. And yet sometimes the anger is misinformed. So our responsibility is...
So what do you think? Just to answer City's question.
The EACC...
Why would the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, a commission that wakes up on a daily basis to fight corruption in all forms, the commission that supported the introduction of this bill to Parliament, why would they...
I can only speculate, and I want to give you an example. When we were having this debate about the state of the nation, of course the EACC came under very sharp criticism. And I have been the focus of all these attacks on this bill because I also brought out the question, all these laws exist, Latiff. How is it possible that nobody has been jailed, nobody has been successfully prosecuted for any of the things that we hear happening? I was doing research yesterday on the amount of money that we have lost from the cases that have been withdrawn by the EACC and the DPP over the past 5 years, almost 20 billion shillings seat.
By the EACC or by the DPP?
Let me tell you, when it comes to economic crimes, it is the EACC that investigates. And I'm telling you, if you look at many of those cases, they are being withdrawn or discontinued because the DPP and the courts say there is lack of sufficient evidence. I want to give you examples. Aisha Jumwa, 19 million shillings, NGCDF. Who is supposed to do that prosecution? The EACC. The investigation is by EACC, prosecution by DPP. Right. The DPP works with what the investigator has brought. The DPP does not manufacture evidence. Sonko, 20 million money laundering. Ferdinand Waititu, 588 million. Former KPLC MD Joe Sang, 1.9 billion charge, dropped. Former KPLC MD Samuel Bishuru.
Is that the EACC or is that the DPP?
These are economic crimes. Under the law. There is only one institution that has the mandate of investigating.
Who withdraws the cases?
So that's what I'm saying. The DPP withdraws for lack of evidence because of the work of the investigator.
Are there instances in all those cases that you mentioned where the EACC has objected to the withdrawal of the cases?
I have never seen an objection.
Oh, they exist.
I have never seen an objection.
They do exist.
They exist.
Now, let me give you an example that I participated.
I want to just move the conversation.
Let me finish this point, Eric. I participated in one of those cases. Before I became a legislator, I used to do private practice. There was a time when Gladys Sholay was charged with corruption. Yeah? And as part of the legal team...
Was that when she was in the judiciary?
Yes, when she was a registrar of a judiciary. From the beginning to the end of the case, the EACC has lined up, I think, 16 witnesses. And we say, okay, let's go and have a hearing on this matter.
What role were you playing in that case?
I was a lawyer.
And who were you representing?
I was representing Gladys. I was one of our legal teams.
Yes.
So we go from witness number 1, witness number 2, witness number 3, witness number 4, witness number 5. We get to witness number 9. And none of these people is coming to tell the court that this is where the money was stolen or this is where the wrongdoing was.
So what were they coming
Then you ask the EACC, why are you presenting these people to court if you do not have the evidence? The truth of the matter is they are under pressure to process some cases to appear like they are doing something. And yet they are not doing anything. So with all these laws in place, when the mirror is cast on them and the Kenyans are asking, with all the legal tools that you've been given, how are you not able to prosecute some of these cases? You hear cases, what do you mean by objections? At the end of the day, if you have not presented evidence that is tangible, that can actually sustain a conviction, you have not done your job as an investigator.
Senator, so let me ask you. This bill came to Parliament from the Cabinet.
Yes.
So it has come from the government into Parliament. The National Assembly has dealt with it. The Senate has now dealt with it. Are you saying, is your position that this bill was unnecessary because you have other bills in place that are sufficiently dealing with the issue of conflict of interest?
I believe so, and it is a position that many share, including the Public Service Commission, whose memorandum I've read to you.
Okay, so
that there is no excuse. You see, if you come to us as legislators and say that the existing law, this is the gap we have identified, can we tighten it here? We will support you, you know. But for you to come and make allegations such as the ones that are being made and spoiling people's names, I mean, it is
so
very
you
unfair.
believe that we do not need
I believe
law.
that we do not need, because
So
even you have identified
why
a problem.
not vote it out?
That's a question. This is the question that we're coming to. Yeah. And I told you that I am here to explain the thinking. I was convinced by the many stakeholders, by our own Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs, that this was the best way to proceed, that we clean up all the laws, have one single law, and be able to proceed with this question of conflict of interest. I am also willing to be persuaded that we can fall back to the existing laws, because in my view, and in the view of the Public Service Commission and the other stakeholders, we do not need a new law. So this is a conversation we need to have. You don't need to go out there in the public to feed them with lies, to just malign people and paint us as, now people are saying we are all the same.
But my question hasn't been answered.
It's quite ridiculous.
Edwin, my question has not been answered.
Which one?
Simple. Why on earth would a respectable institution like EACC, if I'm to take your word for it, peddle lies?
I don't speak for the EACC. I can only speculate. I can only speculate and say they were not very pleased with some of the debate from the floor of the House, especially from me, because I made reference to the Obaso case, where, in the asset recovery case, there was a deal. Somebody has been accused of stealing 1.2 billion shillings. Then you enter into a plea bargain until he returns 300 million and the case is dropped. So when we make those references, because in my mind, and I will repeat this again, the institution charged with dealing with economic crimes, you cannot point fingers elsewhere. It is your responsibility to make sure that you bring these people to book. So they thought that we were attacking them unfairly. But it is a conversation to be had. I have given you all these examples. What do you think it does to the public psyche to know that out of all these people, there is not even a single one who has actually been successfully prosecuted? Rigathi Gachagua, 7.3 billion shillings charge, withdrawn. Former Pipeline MD Charles Tanui, 30 million. Former National Olympics boss Stephen Soy, 55 million, withdrawn. Recently, the case on advertising, government advertising agency, Chebitwe, withdrawn. What they need to do is to explain to the public where the problem is.
Senator, I think, can we shift gears just a little bit? Because quite a lot has happened over the last couple of days. We're looking at yesterday where the president then, signed into, looking at the IEBC in order to now hire commissioners, right?
Yes.
You've been vocal in this conversation whereby we're talking about the political atmosphere and how or when politicians should not be involved when it comes to the IEBC into now elections. I've been of the opinion, and I think many have been, that politicians should be very, very far away from an independent body like the IEBC. Because how then do you debate or dictate who the referee of a competition will be, and even along the line being able to tell them what to do? Has that thought shifted from you in any way?
No, it hasn't shifted. And I don't agree with you that political players can, of necessity, stay away from who the ref is. You were talking about the England game, tonight.
Tonight, yes.
What do you think the other team would feel if the referee is from England? There would be objections. They have views on this issue. You understand?
Yes.
So it is not us as political leaders going to choose the IEBC. What we did is...
Sorry, repeat that statement again?
We are not, as politicians, the ones going to choose the IEBC commissioners. Our role ends with legislation. And if you remember the initial fight, was that the initial panel, the way that it had been put together, we felt it was skewed because it was not representative of all the political interest in the country and all the sectors in the country. Even the people from the religious groups and people who belong to non-parliamentary political parties wanted to have a say in the constitution of the IEBC, because this is one of the bodies that we must get right. So how did it get here? The initial bill was brought a lot of heat. It was one of the issues that we had during the Maandamano organized by us last time. And we are happy that we were able to convince our colleagues from Kenya Kwanza that when it comes to a referee, it is better for there to be broad consensus on how that referee is arrived at. So you will see right now, there is a representation from professional bodies, there is a representation from the parties, even non-parliamentary political parties through the, PPLC. have gotten a slot. So
who decides which people in all these entities?
Yes. Now that is the legislation. The legislative part. It is Parliament that sets and says the panel will be represented by so and so and so and so and so. So you are trying to cover as broad interests across the nation as possible.
Okay.
So you will see representatives of the faiths, representatives of yes. Even us as Azimio, with all the support we have in the country, as the minority side, we are only going to get 2 representatives.
Okay.
Yeah, you understand that.
So we have 2 representatives of the faiths.
Yes.
What interests are they bringing to the table?
What do you mean?
Just answer the question.
The faith leaders are leaders in this country.
So
they have a constituency.
What interest is being represented here?
I don't know how I can explain that. Because these are leaders of the faith, the church has a say in the way
you've been very good at explaining the thinking. I'm asking you to explain the thinking.
Yeah, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to do. You see, when you come up with an organization, a panel to select as an entity as important as IBC, you are trying to look at the society and see which groups represent who. And these groups are usually the same. Whenever these discussions come up, you will see professional bodies wanting to be represented, the church, the youth, women, PWDs. It is always there. Okay. So it is understood that the religious fraternity represents certain interests that maybe could be separate from the political parties, for instance.
Okay, so 2 from there.
Yeah.
The accountants.
EACC.
Yeah.
Yes.
Has 1 representative.
Yes.
Why the accountants? Why not engineers?
No, why not teachers?
Why not teachers?
No. Well,
yes.
This is the
thinking.
This is the conversation. This is the conversation we were having, and we're saying, first of all, the panel has a finite number of slots, right?
Yes.
You cannot have everyone there. And what you're looking for is a representation of professional bodies, for instance. So it could be accountants, it could be teachers, but you can't have all of them because of the space.
Who are more important, accountants or teachers?
So I honestly do not have an answer for that.
Yeah. So
I honestly do not
pick
know.
EACC?
I honestly would not know.
And not engineers.
Yes, this is a question that we grapple with, and even
saying the same way you have a politician's caucus, saying maybe a caucus that represents, or a rotational thing that represents interests in the professions. Lawyers are also there. 1 representative. 5 representing political interests. 2 from the Parliamentary Service Commission. 3 from the Political Parties Liaison Committee. So the majority are representing direct political interest. Direct candidates.
But the IBC is a political body.
Yes,
this is the thing we need to agree, my brother.
Yes.
If you have Kenya Rugby Union.
Yes.
Kenya Rugby Union.
Yes.
And then we fill it with nuns from the Catholic Church. What have you done? You must have relevance to the process. We're not saying that other Kenyans or other stakeholders are not.
Nuns don't like
no,
rugby.
I'm not saying. I have to use the most absurd example so that you understand that it would not look proper.
It's extremely absurd. So here's the thing.
It is an example.
Here's the thing, Senator. So why the players, like you've just given an example, England, Netherlands tonight, right? None of those are involved in selecting the ref for tonight.
But they are interested.
They are interested, but they will not be involved in selecting.
They will find out the result
not be involved in selecting the
No, they will not be involved.
Right?
But that's what we are saying. It was not left only to political players.
A majority.
And one of the things,
it's
not a majority.
5 out of 9 is a majority.
How
what
many
math are we doing?
No, we are doing political parties. We are saying political parties.
No.
Political interest.
It's interest equals influence.
All right, political parties. Okay. Political parties.
Let's do this.
Edwin.
Let's do this.
Edwin.
Let's do this.
Political parties.
No, let's do this.
Political parties. One member representing majority coalition in the House.
Yes.
Political parties, yes or no?
Yes. How many political parties are those?
One member representing minority coalition in the House. Political party or not?
Political party.
3 members from the Political Parties Liaison Committee. Political parties or not?
No, they are not 3. They are not 3 from the Political Parties Liaison Committee.
How many are there?
There is 1 for non-parliamentary political parties. Non-parliamentary political parties. Because for us, we have already gotten through the minority and majority.
Are they in the Political Parties Liaison Committee?
Let me tell you.
There is
1.
Let me tell you what the bill says.
Okay.
3, the law now. 3 from the political parties liaison committee, 1 representing non-parliamentary political parties, 1 representing a party that is in the national level, 1 representing a party that's not in the national level.
I need to see the actual bill myself. But the point that I was making is this.
There are 5 out of 9.
In fact, the initial problem, City, the reason why the initial law was thrown out was because there was a majority of political players in the panel. So there is no way we made the same mistake twice.
If there's one thing politicians are capable of doing.
I will have to check that with the law, and then we have that conversation.
There is yes way. Let me open it. We only have a few
The point we're making here is this. When you have, and as you say correctly, an important body like the IEBC, there's no way, it can't be Caesar's wife. You will not be beyond reproach. That one we've understood and we have accepted. However, it must be necessarily representative of the Kenyan community.
So how would you frame it? How would you
here's what it says.
All those interests?
I will tell you.
The first schedule in the Principal Act is amended, and now we have the selection panel shall consist of 2 persons nominated by the Parliamentary Service Commission representing majority party or coalition and a minority party or coalition. 3 persons nominated by the Political Parties Liaison Committee, of whom 1 shall be from a party other than a parliamentary party or coalition of parties. Where 1 shall be from a parliamentary party or coalition of parties forming the national government, and 1 shall be from a parliamentary party or coalition of parties not forming the national government.
Okay, those are 5.
In total, 5.
Let's continue.
How many members are we talking about?
9. Continue.
Oh, the others I can just tell you quickly. 1 person shall be from the Law Society of Kenya, 1 person shall be from ISPAC, and 2 persons shall be from the Interreligious Council of Kenya. Total,
you are right.
Is equals 9. Majority of the members of this panel are representing England and Netherlands.
You are right. So I don't have a justification for you. I know for a fact that we have taken the position that we cannot lock out political interest from constitution of the IBC because they are the biggest stakeholders.
We are not asking them to be locked out.
As to whether the propriety of the law or otherwise,
Edwin, political
it is something you can always...
the biggest stakeholder, Edwin, even according to the constitution, is the voter.
Yes.
The voter, the citizen, is delegating his authority to these elected officials. The biggest stakeholder in an election is not the candidate.
No.
We are not saying the candidate. We are saying the political player.
And the representation of this this voter doesn't lie beginning.
You are right. You are right. I'm telling you, you are right. It's fine. It's fine. But I would want to, also convince you people that one of the best acknowledged elections was the one from 2002, and you should know how that referee was arrived at. That referee was arrived at by political players, by political parties. The IPPG model was the best model that delivered the best election. So we can have this conversation.
In 1997, the
we
first
can have this
IPPG
conversation
Electoral Commission
with all
had
of
a
us.
dispute.
Yes, it did.
We can have this conversation. So that we are able to agree on what you think is right and what our thinking is. It's fine.
Time imeisha.
Time imeisha aje na kuna vitu zingine
1 minute after 10.
Okay,
it's a minute after 10. Time for the news. Edwin, please come back. Always a pleasure having you here. The Senator of Nairobi City County is Edwin Sifuna. He's been here. Have a lovely day.